Yo, it's me back with Pardon the F-Bomb, the Fight Word episode 1, and we are going to talk UFC today exclusively, no boxing, no nothing else. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I got my phone, Jimmy rigged, leaning up against my iPad because I left my my freaking tripod at work. So if it slides, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to go on. We're going to try to get through this entire thing, but everything might completely malfunction. But I've been going for a little while. Started streaming Ghost of Tsushima on my page, so check that out. Those are some live streams, but we want to get right into this. So the UFC has got some great fights lined up. Miocic versus Cormier 3, Adesanya versus Costa. That's going to be a barn burner. It's happening on my birthday. Super excited about it. So we're going to talk about those first, let you know what my predictions are. Also get into Justin Gaethje versus Khabib, which we know should happen. That needs to get inked as soon as possible. But I know early on when Khabib was supposed to fight Turney, there were some issues related to him getting out of Russia. And with the spikes here in the United States and possibly going to happen, in other places, we can keep our fingers crossed. But we're also going to look back as far as Jorge Masvidal versus Kamaru Usman. Everybody was talking about the foot stomping. Looking at Figueiredo winning the title against Benavidez in their second fight. The man looks like a beast. And also get into, I got my notes here. We're also going to get into Whittaker versus Till, which just happened this weekend, so I should know, right? So that was a great card on Fight Island. I think that was part 3 of Fight Island. So we're gonna start with the easy one to go through in terms of looking back and analyzing everything is Miocic versus Cormier 3 for the UFC heavyweight title, right? So I got my notifications popping up here. Sorry about that. My fingers all in the way. Again, we're Jimmy Rick, but like and subscribe. We're going to start these. So part 3 of this heavyweight championship rubber match. So we saw the first fight. Cormier knocks out Miocic, wins the UFC heavyweight title while he's holding the light heavyweight championship. So he becomes the second fighter after Conor McGregor to hold 2 titles at once. Amazing. Stipe was on a roll. He had only lost, I think, once or twice since then. Earlier in his career, he had been on a tear. He had, beaten Francis Ngannou and all that good stuff. And then he loses to Cormier. So obviously, you have to do it again because Cormier becomes champ. He's got 2 belts. Miocic, I think he's probably defended the title more than any other heavyweight in UFC history. I think he has 3 or 4 defenses before losing. And then he wins the title back in the second fight, knocks, really TKOs Cormier. And I think it was the 5th round, right? The 5th round, TKOs Cormier. But what leads up to that is what this fight is built on. The first fight and the second fight really is what this third fight is built on, and who wins will be determined by who can do what better. So Miocic got clipped, I think, in the second round. I didn't really look deeply into that fight because I really remembered it pretty clearly. I did watch the second fight actually twice before even thinking about doing this video. But he clips him, knocks him out, gives him a couple extra 2, becomes heavyweight champion. He could have retired there, right? And he could have easily had the argument for greatest fighter of all time, especially with my favorite fighter, Jon Jones, having a little bit of an asterisk on his resume with the steroid stuff and all that. But that's a conversation for a different story. Everybody sees things a certain way. I see them my way. You see them your way. However you stand on that, it's cool. But Cormier has only lost to Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. And the second time he lost is a no contest, even though, he got kicked in the head. Jon put him out pretty bad. I'm sure he would want to fight Jones again if he ever could before he's ready to really wrap it up. But whether that happens or not, he knocked out the heavyweight champion. He was undefeated at heavyweight until Miocic knocked him out. And then, he comes back and he's probably thinking that he's going to knock him out again. And that's what the strategy looked like, right? As I'm watching the fight, Daniels, he doesn't really seem to have like a full-on strategy, and he's just avoiding punches, keeping his hands up. His guard's pretty low, and he's swinging. He's catching Miocic. I mean, this is a good fight. It goes on for 5 rounds. But Miocic did something really smart in the 4th and 5th round. The 5th round especially, he was just hammering the left into Cormier's body. And Cormier, ultimately, his body couldn't take it. He folded up under it, got hit with some shots, and that's all she wrote. And here we go again. So is Miocic going to carry his chin high, not put pressure on DC early, make a mistake and get clipped and get knocked out? And is Cormier going to, land a good shot in the same shape he was in the second fight? That would be a bad idea to me. I think he needs to come in with a full gas tank, with a full-on strategy ready to go. And the one thing he didn't do in either of these fights was to really try to take Miocic down. I mean, he's picked up and body slammed and earth slammed every other heavyweight that he's faced and really rolled him on the ground and ground and pounding. That's what he did to Rumble and like heavyweight. So I would love to see him come in and try to press the action, get it to the ground, do some ground and pound, rather than trying to stand and trade with the taller man who hits hard, who has a gas tank for 5 full rounds, and is going to rock you to your body. It really, to me, depends on what Cormier shows up for this fight, but it's heavyweight, so it can go any way. Anybody gets knocked out. My pick, as much as I love DC, I'm one of the few guys that really love DC, even though John Jones is my favorite fighter. I want DC to win because I think it would be a great, he should retire after that. He's getting older. I think he's over 40 now. You win a championship, you retire, you wrap it up, you call it a career, legacy career, Hall of Fame career. But the scary part is Miocic hits hard. And he as much as DC knocked him out, he has a pretty decent chin. He took the shots in the second fight. And that's pretty much, my take on it. So I'm calling it DC in 3, Miocic in 5 or less. This could go either way. This is why this fight is so interesting. But we'll leave it at that. August 15th is going down. I will be watching. I will be tuning in, spending my money to see the fight. Really interested in what's going to happen there. But on my birthday, this is the big one, right? This is what we've all really been waiting for in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya versus Paulo Costa. This is crazy, right? So you got a 6'4", 20 pounds less, really a John Jones kind of guy in the middleweight division. 6'4", 80-inch reach, unbeaten, 19-0, 14 knockouts, 5 decisions. Israel Adesanya. Paulo Costa, pretty impressive resume too. 13-0, 11 knockouts, 1 submission, 1 decision. The only guy to go the distance with Paul is Romero. And the guy to have a pretty good fight and not particularly worried about stylebender was Romero. Both went the distance. Now, Adesanya's fight was 5 rounds. Paulo Costa's fight was 3 rounds. These are 2 completely different fights. But the fights with Romero really tell what can happen in this next fight. Either way, because if you look at it, if you really look at the Romero and Costa fight, they almost fight exactly the same. High energy, muscular guys, big for the division. They're going to put it all on the line, throw punches, throw kicks, whatever. That fight was entertaining. Romero was slipping all over the place, falling down, but he was able to hit Costa as much as he wanted. Same thing the other way. Costa had a little bit more, put some deposits into the body, and I think that was ultimately the difference. I think Costa just hits super hard, and I think Romero knew that. He felt it. He was playing possum and jacking around. I don't think he was ever really truly hurt, but I don't think it was a fight that he was trying to really take over and press the action and get caught with something stupid. Looking at the Adesanya-Romero fight, completely different fight. And watching it a second, so I'm a martial artist myself, so I respect what guys do when they take their time, and I can watch a chess match. I can watch Floyd Mayweather box 100 times all night. Some people call it a snooze fest. I understand what's going on. But the fight, watching it the second time, you can understand people's disappointment, especially after Adesanya comes off of the win against Whittaker, knocking him out. And then he's having the back and forth with John, talking about how John Jones is washed up and how, he's boring. He hasn't finished anybody, but he employs the same strategy that John employs, against all of his opponents by taking his time, being very methodical, and winning, decision victories, especially later on in his career. John's fought half of his career, in championship fights. He's getting older, doesn't probably have the same gas tank. He's had the issues, related to PEDs and being out for some time. So a different fighter. And John was never like a one-punch knockout artist. But Adesanya, he's had those big moments more recently than John has, more consistently, but at the same time, he didn't really take the fight to Romero. It looked like a guy just, trying to get that first defense. And I get it, right? So many guys in the UFC, they win the title, and then the next fight, they're out of the title, and either they never get another shot or they never win the title again, even if they do get a shot. So, hats off to him. You win the fight, and I think ultimately he did what he had to do to win, which is the same thing he needs to do against Paulo Costa. So Paulo is going to come. I think the difference between Paulo and Romero is that Paulo is going to throw caution to the wind. I think Romero was a little too tentative, and then we saw in the 4th and 5th round that if he had pushed the action, it's possible that it could have been a different outcome for him. He might have gotten knocked out, but he also might have done a lot more damage and won some of those rounds against Israel because he didn't do anything to justify being the champion in that division. So rightfully so, Israel Adesanya is the champion. And I think he wins this fight if and only if he fights exactly the same way he fought Romero. Costa is going to come. He's going to try to push the action. I think it's going to be a higher paced fight, and I don't think he's going to give Adesanya as much respect as Adesanya gave to Romero and vice versa. I don't think the respect is there. I think Costa wants to go on and hurt him. I think that presents the opportunity for Israel to probably score a knockout if he catches him. Both of these guys are there to be hit more than I think they should. I think Costa needs to play defense a little more, be very smart against Adesanya. I think Adesanya also needs to stop leaving himself open to being hit. I think he sometimes either gets overconfident or he kind of lulls himself to sleep looking and waiting for the opportunity. And then these guys, these explosive guys like Romero, like Gastelum, and even Whittaker end up landing some pretty hard shots on him. And I think one thing that saves him is his height, so that's a plus. But I don't think you play that game with Paulo. I think Paulo hits harder than anyone in the division that I've seen thus far. And I mean, Adesanya got hit a lot by Gastelum. I mean, Kelvin was able to land a lot of shots. That was a back and forth fight. And he wasn't able to finish Kelvin either. And I think as he's gone along, in the last 5 fights, he's only had 2 finishes. So as you get up to the stiffer competition, the really hardcore guys in the division, you start to see that it's harder to get rid of these guys. I think the Whittaker knockout, as much as it was a great knockout, it was kind of within blows, right? They were both throwing. His got there first. He has longer arms. He knocked Whittaker out. The same thing could happen with Paulo. I think Paulo would be smart to go to the body early as much as you can. I think both of them need to go to the body as much as they can early. But I think he needs to slow Israel down. I think he needs to apply some pressure, and he's going to have to take some shots to get inside. That's just the bottom line. So I'm calling it Adesanya in 5. I think he has the gas tank for 5 rounds. We haven't seen Paulo past 2 rounds except for the fight with Romero. We've never seen him in a 5-rounder. So I think the deck is stacked against him, and I think the more that Adesanya prepares, and the better he's going to get. I really think that he's going to own this division for a while. But he gets hit a lot more than he should, and Costa hits hard. So my call is Adesanya in 5. I think he can knock him out. I don't think he's going to threaten and push the action unless he's able to weaken Costa somewhere in this. So I just see him taking his time, picking his shots, using his reach. That's the smart play. He opens him up. He'll take advantage of the opening. But, Paulo has to play pressure, grab him, try to make it a wrestling match. I haven't seen Adesanya in a wrestling match. They say his wrestling is good, his jiu-jitsu is good. Haven't really seen it. He's been winning fights on his feet. Most guys haven't been able to take him down for any extended period of time. So that's my call. Can't wait for that. And stop talking trash about John Jones. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's a recipe for disaster. Now, the other fight that's not on the website, has not been inked as far as I know, is Justin Gaethje versus Kahbib Nurmagomedov, right? Gaethje just took down Ferguson, who we all thought at this point was the only guy that could really challenge Khabib in the UFC. So Ferguson and Khabib have been trying to get this fight on. This fight is doomed. It is a disaster in the making. It's probably never going to happen at this point. I think Tony's 36 or 37 years old. Maybe he fights a few more years. But with the COVID thing going on, we don't even know if the fight with Gaethje is going to be made this year or early next year. Ramadan's coming up, all that good stuff. But Justin showed that he has all the tools. He has everything there for himself in terms of the skill set. We know he's an all-American wrestler. We know that he can hit, he can box, he can punch, he can kick, he can stand with anybody. I mean, to stand with Ferguson and put the kind of beating on Ferguson that he did was a surprise to all of us. Again, though, I think the challenge with that is his wrestling good enough to take Khabib to stay on his feet? Because what we've seen is, right, everybody thought, Conor, right? Conor hits hard, Conor can strike, he can do this. Khabib did the same thing he did to just about everybody. Edson Barboza, he can strike. He had him on the cage the whole time. And everybody talks about the Al Iaquinta fight. And I want to get into that a little bit because Al Iaquinta is a smaller guy. He moves around a lot, high energy, bounces, all that good stuff. He survived against Khabib. He didn't thrive in the octagon against Khabib. He happened to be the only guy who Khabib couldn't spend the entire fight on the ground with pressed up against the cage on the mat. But he spent some time there pounding on Al Iaquinta. To Al Iaquinta's credit, he was able to get up. He was able to slip away more often than most guys can. And I think that's just the way his body is, how he's made up, and how he approaches the game. Most of these other guys don't approach the game the way Al Iaquinta does. And quite frankly, I mean, the guy probably lost every round if we look at the fight again. Maybe he won one, but far as I'm concerned, as much as they were saying Khabib's getting tired, and everybody gets tired after 25 minutes of fighting, at that level. But we've never seen Khabib truly challenge, with the exception of the choke that Dustin put on him. And that was in tight, but it was in the wrong position. He was able to pull out of it, and it was economics after that. He just pounded him out, and he won. I mean, what is he, 26, 27-0. No one's proven, with their striking ability, with their wrestling or jiu-jitsu background or whatever else they have, to be able to challenge Khabib. So my call for this fight is Khabib all the way, unless Justin does something other than what we've seen before, which is end up on your back against the cage, on the mat, getting pounded out by Khabib. There's no reason, just because he beat Tony, to assume that he's going to beat Khabib. I mean, Tony is a completely different fighter from anyone else, even Justin, even Conor, in the way he moves and the way that he approaches it, and styles make fights. So we don't know how Tony's style would match up against Khabib. We think we know. We can speculate. This is a speculation, right? I understand that. But Justin is a good fighter. He's a great fighter. He's the interim title holder, even though Khabib's still champ, and whatever you want to call it. But I don't see anything so much different from anyone else, other than his grit, other than his will to win, his determination. He's a tough bastard. Take nothing away from his ability, but until I see Khabib truly challenged, truly in trouble, truly hurt, and Justin will have the opportunity to do that, I'm sure, I can't bet against him. I can't call it any other way. I mean, this guy has completely shut down every serious fighter, top contender, best in the world, most famous, biggest pay-per-view guy, anything you want to call anything we thought anybody else was, Khabib shut it down. Any and everybody. And there's no reason to believe that there's anyone else really out there, with the exception of a few guys. Maybe there's guys at 170 if Khabib makes the trip up to 170. I don't know if he has the size for 170, but I don't really see anybody beating him for the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even 4 years. I mean, the guy's still relatively young, and he works hard. He's a hardcore sportsman. But Justin has the tools. I think Justin has the tools. I think he has the opportunity. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens when it happens. I can't wait for it, but my call is Khabib until Khabib loses. I haven't seen a big enough chink in his armor to make a different decision, related to that. So those are my calls. So I got Cormier in a short fight, Miocic in a long fight. I got Adesanya in a 5-rounder. I think it's going to be a very technical fight that gets put on. And obviously Khabib over Gaethje when that fight finally does get inked. I think it's going to happen. Hopefully it happens before Ramadan or right after. Don't want to wait for that. We don't want anybody tripping on any cords. We don't want any more pandemics getting in the way if this fight can happen during this one. So let's get that done as fast as we can, UFC. So with that said, we want to take a little bit of a look back, and we want to start kind of at the beginning of this. And we're just looking at the big fights right now because I got a regular job and I don't do this for a living. We're going to see how this channel takes off, if it takes off, if people are interested in my perspective. But let's look at Jorge versus Kamaru Usman. Highly anticipated. Just in general, we thought he should have got the call. He didn't get the call. The other fight unravels, and then he's able to step in. So there's this idea that he wasn't preparing for him. He wasn't fully prepared. I've heard, from other people that he was, I think it was Anthony Pettis or someone else, I forget. He was training. He was kind of in shape, but he wasn't fully training. He wasn't fully preparing. Just staying in decent health, I guess, but not fight condition. And so, he takes the fight on short notice. I watched the interview with him and Ariel Helwani after the fight. He said he got great payday, so great for him. He's been, really grinding for the last 16 years. Started off in the parking lots and backyards with Kimbo Slice back there in Miami. So hats off to Jorge for always being game to step up and take the challenge. But I thought this fight went the way I still think it would go, even if Jorge has a full training camp. Is that Usman isn't going to really just stand there and trade with a guy like Jorge. And Nate will do that. I think there's some other guys. I think even Conor will do that. He'll enjoy something like that. But I think Kamaru is a guy who wants to smother your punches, get you up against the cage, wrestle you down, and just wear on you, and do all the things that he did in the fight to Jorge, that Jorge wasn't able to defend because of his conditioning. He talked about it, that he wasn't fully conditioned. He was fighting in spots. And I just don't think unless he clips Usman with the best punch and catches him and really rattles him, I just don't think you can fight Usman that way. And I think he knows that, and which is why, to his credit, he didn't take anything away from Usman and what he was able to do. I just don't think Usman, I think he has a solid chin. He was in there against Woodley. He was able to nullify his boxing and ultimately get him up against the cage and get him on the ground and pound on him and win the fight. And I think that's Usman's game. And I think you have to play that game and figure out how to beat him there unless you can keep him off you. He's a strong guy. Jorge talked about how, his squeezing strength is really, was really what surprised him. So I don't see somebody really beating Usman in a striking match. I don't think he's going to engage, but only so much. He's going to ultimately see if he can do it well enough to win that way, and then he's going to put you in a cage, take you down, and wrestle you. And so if you're not ready for that process, you're probably going to lose the fight if you can't get off of it. I think Jorge was saying, his energy wasn't there to be able to get him off. And I know people were going crazy over the foot stomping, the headbutts, and those things happen. I don't think he was trying to intentionally headbutt Jorge, but I think a headbutt did happen and he cut him. But nonetheless, the foot stomping is legal. And Jorge, he did his little dance after the fact, and so he didn't seem to be truly bothered by it. But I don't think he can beat Usman. I just don't see where the power is going to be there enough, and he's going to be able to keep him off long enough to make Usman's wrestling not a factor in the fight. So I really do want them to fight next. I'm not really interested in seeing Usman against anyone else. I know there's some serious guys there that should be getting a shot, but I think this fight, because of the draw that Jorge has, his popularity, that Dana will easily put him ahead. And I think these kinds of fights shouldn't happen when guys aren't prepared for each other. I don't like the step-ins for somebody like Jorge. I think guys that step in should be guys that are maybe 3, 4, or 5, even lower, who can kind of just step in. They weren't necessarily going to get the shot, but they get the opportunity, because I think the mindset is a little bit different. And I think the people who aren't at the top of the heap tend to be truly more prepared often. And if they lose, it's kind of like no big deal. And I would hate to see Jorge get put back at the end of the line when he was kind of right there in terms of his popularity, winning the fight against Nate, the knockout against Askren. And he's just a dog. And I think I would love to see him have another opportunity at it. He's getting older. I think the other guys coming up will have another opportunity to fight for the title. But maybe Jorge has 4 more years if he's going to fight until he's 40. But the guy's my age. I think I'm going to be 37 in September. So, the older you get, the harder it gets for you to cut the weight and just the workout. Your body starts to deteriorate and you're getting banged on like that. There haven't been very many Randy Couture, so I want Jorge to get another shot. I want to see that fight with a full training camp so that we can see the difference between a full training camp Jorge and somebody who kind of came off the couch in 6 weeks or whatever it was to step into the octagon with the best fighter in division as far as we know at this point. So great fight, great showing. Glad Jorge stepped in there, but I think he needs another shot at that. I know Kobe's waiting in the wings and a couple other guys, so we'll see how that plays out. The one that just happened that I'm just completely impressed with this guy, and I don't think anybody in that division is going to beat him, is Figueiredo and his dismantling of Jose Benavidez. Joseph Benavidez, I'm sorry, for the second time. That guy, he's like Conor at featherweight. I think he's too strong for the guys in the division. He doesn't seem to get hurt. Gas tanks on a million, and he just hits hard. The punches land different. I think he's going to be the title holder for a very long time, the next 3 to 5 years, as long as he stays prepared and ready. I don't see anybody there beating him. Every fight that I've watched with him in the octagon, he's eating punches and laughing and beating the fuck out of people. Jesus Christ, this guy's good. He's freaking good. Awesome fighter, amazing preparation, gas tank on a million, can take a punch, delivers power, just out of control, man. That's really all you can say. I don't know who's there going to challenge him in that division. It's smaller guys, and we saw what Demetrius Johnson did in his division at that level. It's just, the gap is so wide. He probably should be fighting at featherweight or something, or maybe maybe that is a featherweight. He should be fighting at lightweight. I got to check my divisions on that. I'm a little off my game in respect to that. But incredible fighter. don't think he's going to lose again. So in recent times, it'll be a while, I think. So this weekend, the big fight was Whittaker versus Darren Till. I was pulling for Darren. I like his attitude. I like his personality. I think he's a solid fighter, good striker. Even Israel gave him some props and still wants to fight him. I think that fight was probably going to happen had Darren Till won. So the conversation is a little bit different. Whittaker was able to eke out a victory 3-2. I think I gave Darren the 5th round, in the 1st round, maybe, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, or the 4th round, something like that. I had my card 3-2. Actually, no, I had my card 3-2 for Till. I think I gave Till the 1st, 4th, and 5th, and I gave Whittaker the rounds in between. I just think he landed a little better, and he really rocked Whittaker in the 4th round with a pretty solid combination and sent them sprawling across the octagon there. But Whittaker's tough, man. He hits hard. It was a back-and-forth fight. You could call some of those rounds either way, so no robbery or anything like that there. But I just think that, had Till's knee been 100% after taking the kick, or not, if he had checked it or bent it and kept those tendons protected, I think he'd, or ligaments, whatever you want to call them. I'm not a doctor. I think he'd had won the fight had he had his full range of motion. It's very difficult. I know I've had a hamstring injury. It's not a knee, but same thing when you have a leg injury. It's hard to do the things that you typically would do in the ring or in the octagon or in the street fight, playing football, whatever it is. With a leg injury. So they're some of the most uncomfortable things. You can't bounce off. And so, he fought tough, great personality. He'll be back. Whittaker fought great. I think that was his first fight back after losing to Adesanya, or maybe he had another fight. Let me just pull it up so I'm on my game. You see, I'm really interested in the Adesanya Costa fight. It's just at the top of the mind, and I just watched it, so it's a fight. But I think I got. Let's see. I'm gonna do a little bit of typing really quick and pull up his sheet, so and see if how on my game I am or not. Let's figure this thing out. Let's scroll down really quickly and see what's going on. Yeah, I was right. He fought Adesanya last time. Look, I got my shit together. He lost that by KO. So I think what I saw in this fight is that Robert Whittaker, with his style, cannot beat Israel Adesanya. So I said it before, Adesanya takes more shots than I think you should with his height advantage, with his reach advantage in this division. I think if he were at light heavyweight, I don't think he's big enough for heavyweight. He may get there, but I think with his reach advantage and his height, he shouldn't be getting hit the way he gets hit. I think he gets hit too solid. He's reeling off. He backs up too straight sometimes. And Robert was able to land some good shots. That fight was close the first time, and it was the 2 knockdowns. The first knockdown at the end of the first round, and then the knockdown that ultimately ended the fight. These were knockdowns while Whittaker was punching, while he was open. It's not like, Adesanya didn't pick him apart to land those shots. They were just flowing shots. No disrespect to his skill set. He landed the punches, but he was getting hit while he was throwing those punches. So it's not like he had really ruled over Robert in the fight because Robert was winning the first round until he got dropped, quite frankly. And the second round was pretty closely contested. I think Rob can stand with them. I just don't know if his chin can take that shot. He was able to hit him with the same left hook, off of getting hit and floored him twice. So I just think the way that Whittaker fights for guys that are more strategic and pretty accurate with their shots like Adesanya, and even Darren Till was landing some stuff. I think Darren's problem was really that his leg was messed up. I think that Whittaker loses to Adesanya every time, and I think he's probably going to get the shot because he won, and he had just lost. I think he's still ranked number 1 in the division. So, it's economics there. He was the champ. He came back. He beat one of the tough guys in the division. But I think the way he fights is very 1 shot, 2 shots at a time. He throws the kicks. He puts everything in there, every shot. He leaves himself open. And even when he throws, he dips his head down and throws the hook over. He's not really looking. He's not getting full extension. And it's all charged forward. And I think we saw in the fight, right, I think it was the first round, and we're back. My wife called me while I was recording, but I was talking about Robert Whittaker and his style of fighting and the way he throws his shots. And again, I just think that the way he throws them, he leaves himself open too much. And ultimately, a guy like Israel is going to pick that apart. I think there are other guys in the division, who he may be able to get those things over on, especially guys that can't hurt him, guys he can wrestle with and take them down. But I think Adesanya is just a different beast, and I don't see him beating him again. So the last 30 seconds gets tacked onto the end. Maybe we'll keep the mess up there. But hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, follow us. We'll be having episodes, if we're successful, keeping this thing going on a weekly basis to talk about the fights here in MMA, in boxing, and then we'll have some other shows related to politics and some of the other social happenings in our society. Stay safe, be well, keep your family safe, wear your mask, and tune into the UFC, and let me know what you think. Peace.